What is happening, people? Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs Talk podcast. Yes, I'm back hosting, not permanently, got another couple of weeks of GCSEs, but it's great to be back. I've been watching from afar and they've been fantastic. So thank you very much for your continued support. And it's great to be back to call what I'm going to call tonight an emergency podcast because Ange Postecoglou has been sacked. A lot to get into. I mean, it's never a quiet day at Tottenham Hotspur, but there's a lot of conversations, a lot of debates, and a lot of strong feelings out there. But as always, we try and be as balanced and professional as always. So thank you for tuning in. Let's introduce tonight's panel. Lewis, great to be back on the podcast with you. It has been a long time. How are you doing?
Yeah, it has been too long. It has been. I've been good, thank you. I mean, I had a couple exams this week. I know you're in the height of your GCSEs because I was in the same situation as you last year. So hope it's going well for you. But yeah, no, I was doing swimmingly until about what was it, 5 p.m. today, something like that.
Yeah, so say no more. Exactly that. I mean, exams were fine. I can relate with that. She, I hope yours are going well as well. Yeah, today absolutely fine. And then you get that Ange news, and that's something quite different. Let's just say. So thank you very much for coming on. I've got two debuts as well on the podcast. Firstly, Kevin, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Harry. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here.
No worries. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And Dave, thank you very much for coming on. Are you doing well?
Harry, thanks for having me. I am doing as well as I could be at this point. I'm still a little shocked.
Yeah, you won't be the only one.
No, not at all.
No, exactly that. Thank you very much for coming in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. If you're watching live on YouTube, please do smash the subscribe button and leave a like. Get involved in the comments as well. A lot of opinions out there. Very interested to gauge your thoughts. And check out our sponsor as well in the Kitman. We'll be doing a lot of exciting stuff with them next season, fingers crossed. So let's get into it. So Ange has been sacked. Lewis, talk to me about your thoughts about it. I know how you feel about it, but try and sum it up.
One word: heartbroken. I mean, I am. It's 2 weeks ago he gave me the best night, or one of the best nights that will be of my life, and I mean it's football is an emotional sport, and he's and that to me is the pinnacle of sport of football is winning a trophy. It's the first I will ever see, so it'll reminiscent for memories for me, and I still can't believe that we've done it. I mean, I just think of Bilbao. You think of your captain Son lifting a trophy, and it brings me so much joy and emotion. It is incredible. I go on Twitter, you go on Instagram, new photos, new pictures get shown of angles of the final, and I just can't stop smiling when I see them. And that's all down to him. That is all down to him. He has given me all of that, and for that I will ever eternally be grateful to him. I mean, I understand that the league, I mean, 17th, I get it. It's unacceptable, and I'm fully with this idea that it's just not good enough. But he sacrificed cup runs for that, and he was successful. Football is about being successful, and it's about winning. And he won, and he's the only manager. He's the most successful manager in 41 years. He's won, and we get rid of him 2 weeks later. I'm distraught. Honestly, I don't get it.
I feel exactly the same way. I would like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not in a way because we've had a lot of uncertainty in the last few days. Personally, don't like the way that the club have gone about it. But we've reached this decision. As I said, there is a lot of people that feel strongly about it. For me, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I think statistically, anyway, Ange's our most successful manager in 41 years. I totally agree with you, Lewis, that finishing 17th isn't acceptable. I will not condemn the 22 home losses. I was there for, a lot of them myself. It's not good. But I think you've got to look at the bigger picture. Would we have taken, playing Champions League football and ending our trophy drought, which was, standard 17 years, and winning the European trophy only for the third time as a club in our history? I think we would have all taken that over, let's say, finishing 4th, 6th, whatever, 5th again, and winning nothing. That's the reality. We're sitting here having a better season than Arsenal, and Arteta's future is not up for grabs. That's the way I view it, but I get other perspectives. So he's a very interesting one, but let's go through the panel and get their thoughts. Kevin, what are you thinking? Can I get your reaction to tonight's news and the chaos that has followed?
Well, I think as we kind of chatted in the green room before the show, you guys know that I've got sort of the opposite view to both of you. So just to sort of put the listeners in the picture, I've been an avid Spurs fan for coming up, 42 years. Go to pretty much all of the home games, and I have to say that Ange's tenure started off like a house on fire. We always remember those first 10 games. He won 8, he drew 2. We were top of the league. We were playing I'm Loving Big Ange instead after every game, and we're all dancing in the stadium. He said he turned it into a nightclub, and he truly did. It was totally amazing. And then from that Chelsea game where we had 2 send-ins off, and I believe it was 2 quite bad injuries, James Maddison, I can't remember the other player, Van der Ven, I think it was. From then on, literally the results have been absolutely horrendous, like absolutely horrendous. And I hear like the Ange people who want him to stay blame the injuries, but there's loads of examples of games where we just haven't turned up, where we've had our first 11. Like some recent ones come to mind, like we lost 2-1 at home to Ipswich. I think it was in around November last year. We had our first 11 out. We didn't turn up for that match. We lost 1-0 away to Palace, and that was our best 11. That was their first ever win of the season, Palace, and that was in October, and they finished goodness knows how many points above us. So I totally get the point of view that Ange gave us the best night of our lives, and it was a truly special night for me. I shared it. I watched it around my dad's house. We shared it together. It was an amazing moment. You don't know how many moments like that you're going to get. Like my dad's, getting a bit older now. Maybe that's the last moment I'll be able to share with him. So truly thank Ange for that. But I'll take you back to the last manager that won the trophy with Spurs, which was Juande Ramos in 2008. He went on the next season, 2 points, the famous 2 points from the first 8 games. We had to sack him when we were bottom of the league, bring in Harry Redknapp to save us, and the rest is history. So I think it is actually like your heart might say, he gave us that best moment, and it's almost like that amazing woman that you meet. You have an amazing night for her. Thank you very much. But do you want to marry her and spend the rest of your life for her? Or maybe not. She might not be for you. She might be the type that, goes off for other men. You want to find someone who's going to, be in it for the long term. And I feel like that's what we need to do with Ange. Like, thank him for that night. Whoever have a place in our history, in our hearts. But we need to move on now and find someone who can take advantage of, the squad that we're building. We've got Champions League football, and try and progress. And just before I let Dave come in, just want to leave off on some stats of Ange's league tenure over the 2 seasons. So what I've done is I've broken the Premier League into 19 game blocks, so like half seasons. So season 1, first half, he got 36 points, so it's a good start. Part 2, 30 points. Part 1 of season 2, 24 points. Like utterly abysmal. Part 2 of season 2, 11 points from 19 games. So you can see there we've gone 36, 30, 24, 11 in points over those half season blocks. So it's just going like the trajectory is just down, 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 down. So if we gave Ange our 200 million transfer budget, he spent it on his players. And then after 10 games, we'd carried on that trajectory, lost 7, won 2, drawn 1. We'd sack Ange and be left with like a broken squad and write off another season, which, I wasn't willing to do. So I was actually pleased that the club made this decision.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Okay, thank you, Kevin. And when was the turning point for you in terms of you went, nah, I'm done with Ange, he has to go? I'm assuming it was last season, but at what point?
I think it's towards the end of last season where he was... Because we had an injury spell like around Christmas last season, like I said, following that Chelsea game, and the season, form went from like I said, started on a house on fire, then it went a bit hit and miss for a few games. I was like, given the benefit of the doubt. Then it suddenly sort of dawned on me that we started to get our players back and things weren't changing. We're still losing too many games. And I think the thing that sort of really hit the nail on my head was there was the Nottingham Forest game at home. The Monday Night Football, it was a couple of months ago. I took my nephew with me, 16, and on the way to the game, I said, watch what Forest will do. I said, they'll hit the ball into either where Porro should be standing or where a doggy should be standing, because they'll be up front on the edge of the other team's penalty box. They'll just play the ball over there. Alanga or Hudson-Odoi will run onto it, cross it in for Chris Wood, and they'll score. And they did that twice in the first 20 minutes. One of them was ruled offside, and the other one, they actually scored and they won the game. And he said to me, "How did you know that?" And I was like, "Because I've been watching this every game, every home game for 2 years now. That's just what he does, because he doesn't play our fullbacks at fullback. He plays them in the number 10 role where James Maddison should be." So I just think the tactics are flawed and everyone's worked it out. And the reason the first 10 games went so well is because people just didn't know what he was going to do.
Okay, so you think it's been a downfall since those first 10 games? You think maybe like a...
I've read
do you think it's been a new
out.
manager bounce? You think that reason for 10 games rather than maybe something that Ange has done?
I don't know whether it's new manager bounce. It might just be that the other managers were caught by surprise. I mean, no one else has played that style of football with literally everyone up front, all of your fullbacks up front. I think the other managers didn't really know what to do. And you have to remember as well, we got lucky in a couple of those games. Like we're losing 1-0 to Sheffield United. I think it was in the 92nd minute, and we turned it around 1-2-1, and that's the Premier League record for the latest ever comeback to go on to win a match. We beat Liverpool 2-1, which was also in that 10-game spell, and they were down to 9 men, and we relied on an own goal in the 94th minute, I think it was. So there was a few games in there where, yes, we did win or we didn't lose, but we kind of squeaked it. And I also think, his luck ran out a little bit after that.
Some would say that big teams do get the job done, but you're certainly right. We didn't do it the easy way at times at all. Dave, I'll come to you. Can I get your reaction to Ange's sacking?
I'm disappointed. I think if I had to sum it up in one word, I'd say I'm disappointed. And I think I'm mostly disappointed because I think I put my faith into the strategic review that the team underwent before they hired Ange, where they talked about, hey, look, what's been going wrong for 5 or 7 years here, and it didn't invest in development of the players in the youth squad, didn't recruit very well, had how many ever managers that we had after Poch? So Nuno, Ryan Mason, Jose, Ryan Mason, Conte, Stellini, but all this inconsistency. And I wanted to believe that things were going to be different this time. And what I think what the message sends is that no matter what you do, you're always just a whim away from being sacked, right? And I think that all this talk about a strategic review and a direction and an idea of a style and a formula for how we're going to do things, I find it just to be irrelevant, because I just don't trust the board or Levy anymore, especially the way they handled this.
That's really interesting. Thank you very much. Tell you what, before we rate Ange's time out of 10, at Spurs, and we also maybe review the season a little bit more, let's read, if people haven't seen it, the club statement on Ange Postecoglou's departure, and it is very long, so please do bear with me with this one. They said, following a review of performances and after significant reflection, the club can announce that Ange Postecoglou has been relieved of his duties. Ange joined us from Celtic in the summer of 2023 and oversaw a period of change on the pitch, returning us to the attacking brand of football that has traditionally been associated with the club, while writing a new chapter in our history by leading us to Europa League glory in Bilbao last month, an achievement that will live with us forever. We're extremely grateful for Ange for his commitment and contribution during his 2 years at the club. Ange will always be remembered as only the third manager in our history to deliver a European trophy, alongside legendary figures Bill Nicholson and Keith Birkinshaw. However, the board has unanimously concluded it will be the best interest of the club for a change to take place. Following a positive start to 2023-24 Premier League season, we recorded 78 points from the last 66 Premier League games. This culminated our worst ever Premier League finish last season. At times there were excruciating circumstances, injuries, and then a decision to prioritise a Europa League campaign. Whilst winning the Europa League this season ranks as one of the club's greatest moments, we cannot base our decision on emotions aligned to this triumph. It is crucial that we are able to compete on multiple fronts, and we believe that a change of approach gives us the strongest chance for the coming season and beyond. This has been one of our toughest decisions we've had to make, and it is not a decision that we've taken lightly, nor we've rushed to conclude. we believe made the right decision going forward, but it hasn't been easy. We have a talented young squad, and Ange has given us a great platform to build upon. We should like to express our gratitude to him. We wish him well for the future. He'll always be welcome back at our home. News on the appointment of a new head coach will be announced in due course. It's very, very long. Lewis, what do you make of that? I mean, I think the point is quite clear that it's the league form that he's being judged on.
Well, they said after a long review, they didn't bloody review it enough, did they? I mean, it's they said they want to tack on, they want to be successful and like on multiple fronts. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what he said, but be competitive on multiple fronts. But the season gone, I mean, we weren't competitive in the Premier League, I'll give you that. But the Carabao Cup, we got to the semi-final, so that's pretty competitive. Won the Europa League, I mean, pretty competitive if you ask me. And okay, well, the FA Cup maybe not, but I mean, I would say from that period of when it got to January, we were competing for all three cup competitions that we were in. That is being competitive on multiple fronts, if you ask me. I understand the Premier League is the main part of your campaign this season. It's the bit that takes up the massive chunk of it. But we were fighting on three fronts for silverware, and we won on one front of silverware. Got to the semi-final where we came up against the best team in the Premier in England. Like, I mean, obviously, the away leg at Anfield was nothing short of embarrassing, but again, we still got there. And we were close. I mean, I just they take the emotion out of the decision, but football is an emotional sport, and it always will be. And it's not. The board is just it's pretty laughable if you ask me. I mean, look, I understand that this Premier League season will go down as will go down as our worst ever, but to me, it will go down as my best season as a fan watched ever because of that one achievement. And I understand they say you can't base it off that one achievement, but you can do that because, I mean, if you look at this, to me, if you look at the players' reaction after Ange was shuddered off to the side and lifted the trophy, all the players were pulling him in, trying to get him involved. Players like Pedro Porro, Romero, I think they're gone now. I think they loved Ange, and I think they could be walking. I think this squad, I think this locker room, dressing room backlash, I think it's going to hit Levy a lot harder than he think it will, because I think the players were really behind Ange. I think the fans, I mean, started to get behind him now. Obviously, some fans out there still are happy with the decision. I mean, if that's your opinion, very much. So I can't knock your opinion, but I think the players in that dressing room now, I think a lot of them will be distraught. I mean, I think so. I mean, I could obviously be wrong, but players, I mean, Solanke, players have just joined. Like Kevin Danso, I just saw he was on Instagram. Like, there's loads of players in that squad now. I think we'll be pretty upset with what's just happened, and you might see Son leaving now. I think this squad that was just won the Europa League will be unrecognisable to the squad we'll see at the end of next season. I could very much be wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's very much changed. And I think next season, maybe in the league, in the Champions League, I mean, I can't. I don't. I think this rebuilding of next season, I think, is going to be dire. I think if this season was bad, I think it's only going to get worse. I'm not saying we're going to get relegated, but I just can't see it getting much better.
Hopefully not. Don't want to go there. I just think that for me, that these players are winners now, and whether we would have led to anything in that third season, who knows? But I just can't help but think, what if?
What could have been like? I mean,
what could have been, and that is forever a horrible feeling. And I have the same feeling for the Champions League final. What if we'd signed one more player, or the next season? What if we'd given Pochettino that back in the arse for? What if we'd taken this seriously? And that's horrible as a football club.
It's just, to me, that I say if we with that achievement, I think he deserved up until December. I mean, what could really have gone wrong in those few months? It's not that long of a period up to December. If we were falling behind in the league and in the Champions League, then fine, I would have been okay with sacking them. But who's to say that the players aren't behind him? Who's to say that that tactics aren't changed? Because if you look at the Premier League, that line, it was being dropped. It wasn't the same gung-ho football that we had initially had with Ange. It was being dropped.
We were losing games though, so it didn't make a difference.
But I mean, we were playing our B team. I mean, because he was prioritising that Europa League campaign. When was the last time we saw Pedro Porro, Udogie, Van der Ven and Romero in a back four in the Premier League? You'll probably go back until like last October, November. You generally are. Because, I mean, it was that long ago. And that back four, I think, is very solid.
Jed Spence would actually arguably be our best player for 3 or 4 months. And then Udogie gets fit and Ange goes, great man management, drop you, Jed Spence. And then just bring back a doggy.
I still think that we've rotated our squad so much because of circumstances outside of Ange's control. If we were to have, I mean, and
Yeah,
I
but
think
that's
as
the
it's
problem. I think Ange is so poor at managing the squad. So the first 10 games of the season, he barely rotated when we were fully fit squad. He still couldn't beat Leicester. We lost to Newcastle. We lost a couple of other games. We lost to Arsenal 1-0. We had a really poor start to the season, fully fit squad. He played the same 11 every game. And then they all started getting injured and he wondered why.
Well, think about it like this, though. It's, you know, want to compete on multiple fronts. But the thing is like, I think all of us, I don't know if there's anybody, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who thought the squad was big enough and had enough quality at the start of the season to compete in 4 competitions. I don't think any of us thought that. Ange was given the job to rebuild the team after it had not been invested in and rebuilt and managed in the right way. He was brought in to develop young talent. He wasn't really given that many experienced players. So he was cutting and pasting things together the whole time. So to me, that has to be the context of some of the decisions he made and some of the outcomes that we saw take place, because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Part of the reason that we're in this position and have been in this position many times over the years is because of that lack of like long-term vision and that lack of kind of consideration to what the squad needs over time. That lack of identity that we had until Ange was brought in. Those things can't be just like washed away because they're part of the problem. If we're just, flying from one decision to the next and jumping from one consideration and one style of play to the next, then it's always it's this cycle over and over and over again.
That's interesting. Okay, I think you all make really good points, and I think you're all right, kind of in your own way. So it's really interesting to hear, and it's good to get that different perspective. It'd be boring, wouldn't it, if we all saying the same thing? It's ultimately it isn't an easy decision, although we all feel differently about it. It's tough. It really is when you come off the back of probably your worst ever Premier League season, but at the same time, you've got a manager that is really successful and will go down in history. It's hard.
Lewis, how would you have felt if we'd have lost to Man United?
I would have still been behind Ange. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but I mean, I don't know. Is this? I don't know why, but to me, I just have something for this guy. I genuinely, I don't know why. I love the way he just goes about his football. I know it's pretty ironic how horrific we were in the Premier League last season, but it's just, I just still believe that no manager out there is more suited to this club than Ange Postecoglou, because he plays for Tottenham and he's so passionate for this club, and I don't think you will find someone else who is.
He embodied to dare is to do in the way he handled the media, in the way he challenged the media, in the way he directly confronted a lot of those labels like Spursy and bottle jobs, all of those things. Like, he was what people seem to have wanted to be begging for. And the problem is that it would have been better if he hadn't have been able to start out so strong, because you think about the context of what he came into, which was like, we're going to rebuild this squad. We're going to data driven. We're going to invest in the future. We're going to, a whole new model of playing. But it's Ange with like some leftovers from Paratici and Conte. And he's managing that squad. And so they weren't able to unload all these players, right? Remember the late, great Tanguy Ndombele, right? And how many times he went out on loan? The superstar Brian Hill, right? All these guys that were still sticking around the squad. And he brought in some new players. He was able to manage that early period of time. But he never really had a chance to start establishing that turnover of staff until this last summer. And then they were selling players, but we were left shorthanded. We didn't have enough people, so all these things matter. And so, I just am always like frustrated because, it's like, do you want to do the job or you don't? And that's where like, even like sacking Ange, talking about a new manager, I was like, well, nothing changes until like the way the board acts changes. And that has to come with like some sort of vision and some sort of identity, and it can't just change every year.
I do agree with that, and I don't think it's pure. I don't think you can say, I think there's a ceiling to what any manager could do. I honestly think you could get Pep Guardiola in at Spurs, and maybe the best he could do would be third or second. I think Poch literally reached the ceiling of what's possible under this ownership. Completely agree with you. Like, before we go on to the leave you out debate, but still, I do not believe for 1 second that this squad should be finishing 17th in the league. And you can tell me all you want that he prioritised the cups and and he won them. Great. We still should never be finishing 17th. If you look at the teams that came above us, even up to maybe Villa, and I'll challenge anyone at the start of the season, and I'd said to you, you can change like Brentford's squad for our squad. Would you take that? No. Would you take Fulham's? No. Would you take Palace's? No. You could go down the league, and I swear no one would swap any squad for our squad. Yet people sit here and say our squad's not good enough. So why wouldn't you swap them for a team that finished higher then? I do think
they're also only competing in one. Most of them were in one competition.
Villa weren't. So Aston Villa, you could argue that they've got a smaller budget than us. Maybe if they've built their squad.
Well, no, I mean, Aston Villa's owners have ploughed millions into that squad.
Yeah, but I think Aston Villa are actually a brilliant example. So they had Steven Gerrard come in. He's your so-called winner. He's your Ange. He won in Scotland on the Rangers. And he almost got Villa relegated. And the board just went, no, you're out. Unai Emery comes in, hardly signs anyone, takes that same team up to Champions League and nearly got back-to-back Champions Leagues. And it shows what a difference getting the right manager in. And I'm not saying Thomas Frank's the right choice, but I do think if you hire a top-quality manager, he can propel you up the league.
Do you know, Kevin, I completely agree with you. You're right in terms of Villa struck gold, I think, with Emery. I think, or whatever way you want to look at it, he's definitely the right manager for Aston Villa. But to play devil's advocate here, and you might agree with this, you might not, that's fine. But I just think the way that Villa approach the transfer window is different. I'll give you an example in January, right? We signed players that plug gaps and for the future, for the second team. Good example, like Kinski, Danso, both good players. And I think we'll both be first team players in the future, but it's not about now, apart from filling the gap for injury.
No, I do.
It's Rashford, isn't it? It's Asensio. It's okay, they're maybe not wanted or right for their club, but they're world class.
I completely agree with you, Harry. And ironically, that's why I don't think Ange's a good fit. I know he won the cup, but you look at who he beat on the way to the final. And fair play to him, he won the cup. He beat, we even lost to some crappy teams early on. We beat AZ Alkmaar. We beat Frankfurt. That was probably the best victory. We beat Bodo Glimt, who I'd never even heard of up until we played them. And probably half of the fans hadn't, up in the Arctic Circle. And then we beat the worst ever Man United team in my lifetime. They were horrific. They were only 2 points better than us. Fair play, he won it. Can't take that away from him. But I honestly think Ange's strength is, like you said, Dave, talking to the media, psyching up the players, the team talk, the mentality, that side of the game. I think tactically he's very weak. I think coaching young players, he's very weak. Whereas you look at a Poch, I think his strong point was picking young talent and getting the best out of them and nurturing. You look at all the examples he brought Harry Kane through, Dele Alli, etc., etc. And I only think, like you just said, you hit the nail on the head, Harry, when you said, well, our transfer strategy, and it is because Levy plays it cheap. He's going to buy the young players. He's going to buy the cheap players. So we need to find a coach that accepts that, knows that, and can, bring those players on and get the best out of them, because that's what he's going to get given by Levy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Jill, I think you make a good point, Kevin, in terms of, we should be finishing 17th. And you also make a good point in that when we did have our best backline available, there were losses in there that you can't really, kind of explain, I suppose, or accept. And Leicester and Ipswich at home are good examples of that. So no, I appreciate all of you for making points here. Before we get on to manager replacements, a lot of names kind of linked. Thomas Frank seems to be leading the way at the moment, and a little bit of Daniel Levy. I want to kind of rate Ange's time at Spurs, but also the season out of 10. So we start the season. So I'll go round one by one. If I can firstly just get your rating out of 10 for this season, and then we get into why. So I'll just go around and getting all of yours, and then we'll dissect it. Dave, I'll come to you. Just a number. So 10 being the highest, 0 being the lowest this season. Just go.
Only because we finished 17th in the league, I'll say 9 out of 10. But the joy of winning the Europa League was so great, and it was such a weight off of people's back that that's going to overwhelm everything else.
9 out of 10. Okay. Kevin, go on. I feel yours is going to be a little bit lower, but I want to see how low you
I'll
go.
go for 7.
Okay.
Because I still
too
feel like
bad.
I'm riding off the joy of the Europa League.
Aren't we all?
But the rest
Well,
of
we
the
were.
totally abysmal.
No, fair enough. That's absolutely fine. Lewis, what are you thinking? I think yours is going to be sky high.
Is there a number higher than 10 we can go for? 100? I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. No, but I don't care. I mean, what would at the end of the day, next season, if we finish 4th, are you going to be going? That night we finish 4th? No. What I mean, what is that one about? I mean, the emotion you get at football is winning a trophy. I've never been hugging people I've never met in my life. I've never been like just screaming. I've never been crying at finishing 4th. But you do that when you win a trophy, and that's, to me, that's the ultimate pinnacle of football. So that's why I'll give it a 10.
No, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with you, but I don't think that's a reason to keep Ange. Like, do you think if we kept Ange, hand on heart, like take your Ange specs off, hand on heart, how do you think Ange would do next season? Like, where do you think he'd come in the league? How do you think he'd do in the Champions League? How do you think he'd do in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup?
Well, if we didn't win the Euro,
the level we'll give him, which is probably 3 19-year-olds, maybe £150 million player that Ange has picked that's no good, like another Brendan Johnson or someone. How do you think he'd do next season with the way Ange manages the squad, the way he plays highline football? We have about 10 centre halves out with hamstring injuries because they spend all their time running forwards and backwards. Like, how do you think he would get on next season, hand on heart?
Well, if we kept him, I'd say in the Champions League would probably finish in that mid slot bit. I would say not 8th, not top 8. I would say in that anywhere in that, maybe like 15th, 20th. I would say probably there. Get round 32. I'd say would probably win and probably get knocked out round of 16. That's what I would say. Premier League. If I had a full season with him, I would say probably around 8th, 9th. I mean, I wouldn't really go much higher than 8th, 9th. I'd say I would say FA Cup, probably similar story to this season, and Carabao Cup. I could fancy us maybe not winning it, but I could. I mean, season 3 was supposed to be better than season 2. I mean, come on,
Ange isn't going to win a trophy next season if he stayed anyway.
I mean, I'd say Carabao Cup would be our best shot of doing it. I mean, whether or not we did on. I mean, there's so many external circumstances. I mean, should I say injuries? I mean, you don't know. We've had both seasons we've had under him. I've been poorly struck by injuries. Is that down to his playing style? It could be. I mean, is that down to luck? I mean, it also could be. I don't know, but I don't see. I just don't see that with a new manager coming in, that all the players are going to be behind them. I see loads of players leave. I think Romero's might be leaving, as I said.
I don't
maybe
think.
Pedro Porro. I think the dressing room's just going to be a bit unhappy with this. I think it's going to be another rebuilding year. That I can't see us doing better than if we didn't have Ange, because it's just going to be another year of rebuilding, and I just don't really know if I want to sit with that.
I don't know.
It feels like a lot like rage quitting on FIFA.
I think every fan always says when you change manager, it's a rebuild. But why do Brighton change their manager? It's not a rebuild. Like De Zerbi left, I can't remember, the new guy comes in and just carries on. And, I think other clubs have a really good model of doing that. But when a Tottenham manager leaves, it's a rebuild. Why is it a rebuild? Why can't we?
Because we make it impossible for the managers to succeed. So they have to put together these long-standing projects.
It seems like we always have the opposite ends of the extreme. So we had like Conte and Mourinho, who were
that's that thing that we were talking about.
Conte and Mourinho will win now managers. But
they were super defensive, weren't they? And then we had Ange, who's super attacking. And now everyone's going, we need some more defensive. Why don't we just have someone who's like, Ange is a 10 out of 10 on the attacking front? Why don't we get someone who's like an 8?
But the club will say
then at that point, you just keep Ange. If you want the manager like Ange, you keep him.
I don't want a manager like Ange. I want a manager who looks after the squad and doesn't lose.
Then it is a rebuild. Then it has to be a rebuild, then, isn't it?
It doesn't have to be a rebuild, because I can have someone who's got the attacking intent, plays the Spurs football, but knows how to manage a squad and knows how to, change tactics, not just stand there on the side of the pitch with his hands in his pockets, looking with a confused look on his face, not doing anything. I want a manager who's going to affect the game and actually shout someone, oh, I can see, you know, Pedro, you're going up front near James Maddison. They're hitting the ball over your head every 5 minutes and they're getting in. You drop back and actually stop that. I want a manager who's going to change tactics on the pitch. Like everyone around me in my block can see it. And he's paid £5 million a year and he can't see it on the side of the pitch. And to your point, I just want to pick you up on what you're saying about players leaving. You know, I think players are probably upset. Like when the boss changes at work, they are, you know, going to be upset. But I actually think you pay too much kudos to that. I think players are fickle. The amount of money that's paid in the Premier League, players struggle to match that anywhere else. And I don't think many players would go, oh, I'm just going to leave because Ange has left. Even if I go somewhere in France and earn a fifth of the money, no player's going to do that. They're all going to stay. Like if we want them to stay, they'll stay. And if a new manager comes in and we start winning games, they'll soon forget about Ange and carry on playing for the new guy. I think if a player wants to leave, they're going to leave. Like, I think Romero's time is probably up. He's been flirting with Atletico Madrid and whoever else. And if he wants to go there, then I just think best of luck to him. I think we sell somebody who's not committed, especially someone who's injured as much as he is, and try and get as much money and sort of move on. But I don't think we'll suddenly have 10 players walking out because Ange's gone.
For me, there's two sides to it. I think the dressing room, from what we can see, and obviously we don't know this, it seems like they're behind him, right? It seems like they like him, seems like a father figure, etc., etc. But at the same time, where I do think you are right, Kevin, is they're not going to throw their toys out the pram. Certainly not, long term anyway. There's most of these players I think will still be here. I think, with the exception of players like Romero, who clearly even closer to Ange. The only thing is for me is when you install that winning mentality, I just feel like that you lose that a little bit. But obviously, those players have had an experience together of winning. That is really important to remember. But it is a tough one. It is a tough one. But I want to go into reviewing very quickly his time at Spurs. We'll just kind of rate it out of 10 because we talked about it a lot. But I want to find a rate out of 10. His time at Tottenham, because today was the 2-year anniversary, and he's literally been here 2 years dead on. No worries about days and weeks extra. It's dead on 2 years. So Lewis, kick us off. Out of 10, his time at Spurs. And for a reminder for people, first season was 5th place, securing Europa League football. Second season, 17th, but securing Champions League football and winning the Europa League. So what do you reckon? Lewis?
Being honest, I would say, at his time at Tottenham, 8 out of 10, because he done something that Pochettino couldn't do. We winning the trophy. If you was to rate Pochettino's time at Spurs, you'd probably say I'd probably give it about a 9, to be honest. But because of he done the 10 was not doing what Ange could do. But being very honest, his time at a club, I would give it a 7 or an 8, because he done what Pochettino couldn't do, and I think Pochettino is probably a better manager than Ange, but he couldn't get over the hump. In the seasons we played, like I'd say about from the period of 15 to 2018-ish, we played amazing football. We won loads of games, but we just couldn't get over the line, and that was something that Ange did. But his time will just be remembered by that one night. Is what I mean, because you're not going to remember us finishing 17th in 10 years' time, are you? But you'll remember that feeling of lifting the Europa League. And it's just, I just wish that the league was just a little bit, because I think generally, if we finished, United finished 15th, right? If we finished 15th, I think he might have actually been, I think 2 to 3 places. Generally, I think it might have been a different story. I generally am, because United have finished 15th. They've not won a trophy this season. They've had the worst season in their history. Yeah, they're keeping hammering.
Because they only brought him in January.
Well, maybe they did, but at that point, he's still been a very, very poor.
Oh, he has 6 months. Crap. I think if he doesn't pick up by November, December, he'll be gone.
They've given him funding. Not that much, but right now they've had a really, really, really poor season, and now they've plugged in with Matthias Cunha, and all these signings.
Why have they had a poor season? Like the back end of last year, they were doing crap in the league. They had a manager who's going nowhere, getting worse and worse in Ten Hag. They won the FA Cup. They let emotion go to their heads, like you're doing, Lewis. They thought, oh, we'll keep him. They gave him a massive budget to spend in the summer. He wasted it on a load of peroxide blonde wingers who can't play football. And then they got to Christmas and then realised they had to sack him. So I think it's a good thing that we're not repeating that mistake with Ange and blowing our small transfer budget on, his talent ID.
But the
I mean, it's just to me.
mentality
It's just to me though.
is
It's
all different though, because like United has a history of being successful. We have a
Yeah,
history of
it's very
being
different.
Spursy. We have a history of being bottle jobs. People make fun of us.
Only
all the time.
recent history, actually, probably up until these owners took over. Before that, we are
That's
actually
25 years. That's a long time.
I know, but you said a history.
Harry and
I think
Lewis,
our
they
club's
weren't even
history,
close to being born then. That's
up
time.
until Arsene Wenger went to Arsenal, we had the British record for the most FA Cups, and we held that for a long time. And I was really proud of that record. So we actually, if you compare our sort of trophy haul to maybe other clubs you'd think of us in, like when was the last time Aston Villa won a trophy? When was the last time Everton won a trophy? Okay, West Ham won the Conference League. All these Newcastle haven't won something for 70 years until they won the Carabao Cup. I just think there's an issue in football that's wider than Spurs in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, hardly anyone wins trophies. And that group is getting smaller and smaller. The stats show it. And the reason is more and more money is just going to the bigger clubs.
Yeah.
And we're actually a bit of a victim of that. So we shouldn't go, that is lay all the blame at the owner's door. I think they are to blame, but I think some of it is the cards are kind of stacked against us. You've got clubs owned by nations with endless money getting around the rules, and you just can't compete with that. Even if Levy said, right, I'm going to spend all the money I can, I still think we'd struggle to win the league.
But that's why you prioritise things like the Europa League, isn't it? And we got the job done. That's what many would say.
Yeah, because even our most successful managers in recent years, because it was, I mean, this categorically, Ange, our most successful manager in 41 years. I mean, it technically is a fact. I can't even, because it is really, it's a European trophy, and it means, I mean, it probably means more than the Carabao Cup. So realistic, I mean, statistically, he is. I mean, that's not even my opinion. So you just, I mean, it's just, but that's what I mean. Like, we've been so successful. You think of our most successful manager if we didn't win this, it would be Pochettino, and our most successful manager in 17 years hasn't won a trophy. That's the level of the club we are.
Kind of missing my point. Like, and amazing. Our most successful manager before Ange was Juan de Ramos. Who remembers him? He was god awful, but he won us a trophy. I think I'll put him in the same cabinet as I do Ange. Thank you for the trophy. Thank you for the night. Very special. With my family, loved it. I don't want you to continue because I don't think you're good enough. There's a difference. And congratulations, he got over the line. I can't take that away from him. I do honestly feel like Poch is the best manager we've ever had under this ownership. It's a travesty we sacked him because he wasn't even doing that bad. He didn't have the investment. I think we should have just given him the money to rebuild the team and we would have come back much stronger. Absolutely. But I just think Poch also got a little bit unlucky in some of the finals. Like he had, obviously, Harry Kane was injured. He controversially chose to bring him back in the 2019 Champions League final. I think we lost to Chelsea in 2015, if I remember rightly. That was one of his first seasons at the club, lost 2-0. I think he had a little bit of an unlucky run. Like he was always coming up against some amazing teams. Like, again, not taking anything away from Ange, he won it, fair play. But it was like the worst ever Man United team I've ever seen. Poch came up against a Liverpool team that won 2 Champions Leagues in 3 years, went on to win the Premier League, overturning the best Man City team I've ever seen. That's what he was up against. And Ange was up against Bodo Glimt, Frankfurt, and the worst Man United team I've ever seen. So fair play. He did it. He got the job done. You can only beat what's in front of you. But I have to say, if Poch had that opposition, I think he would have won it as well. And probably not stank the place out as well.
I want to move on to managerial replacements to Daniel Levy, but I do want to do that rating out of 10 for his time at Spurs. So, Lewis, remind me what you gave. We'll go around very quickly without the reason, just the rating.
I think I gave a 7 or an 8, but what, up it to a 10. Why not?
Up it to a 10. I like that.
Up it to a 10. Why not? Memories.
Kevin, I'm interested to hear yours on this.
I could just go 7.
Period.
7. I've got to keep it at 7 because I said 7
That's
for this
fair.
season, so it's got to be 7.
I appreciate that. No, that's really good, and I totally get what you're saying because I think Man United's a good example of Ten Hag. It is a kind of distraction from maybe what is actually happening at the club and the fact they're not going anywhere. They're stagnating. So I think you make a good point. And you know what? It remains to be seen whether it's the right decision or not. Well, this is just our opinion. We don't know. Thomas Frank could come in, hit the ground runner, or whoever comes in. But at the same time, they could come in and struggle. We just don't know. That's the thing. It's all opinions at this base. So I appreciate your rating, Kevin. What do you reckon, Dave? What are you going to give it out?
I'll go 8 because I figure I've been in the middle of Lewis and Kevin the whole time, so I'll just stay in the middle.
Stay in the middle.
A 7 or 8 was 8.5.
8.5. Love it. Right. We will leave Daniel even to the end because I don't want to give that man much of my time whatsoever at the moment. But we will go on to managerial replacements. So Thomas Frank, let's kick off with him. His name is the one that's doing the rounds. Obviously, currently manager of Brentford. I think he's done a fantastic job on a very low budget and is definitely ready for the step up. Is Tottenham the right job for him? Dave, talk to me about Thomas Frank. How do you feel about him? Is it uninspiring? Is it just a case of let's get behind the manager?
I mean, I'm frustrated, and the word I used, disappointed earlier. I know that eventually I'll get behind the manager. I know that that's where I'll get. It's uninspiring to me, though, because he hasn't, his big accomplishment is keeping Brentford up year after year and getting them promoted from the championship. I mean, if your motto is to dare is to do, and you just won the Europa League, you should be having higher ambitions than that. So to me, it's uninspiring.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. That's okay. For me, although my thoughts on this, I don't agree with the club's decision today. I don't agree with the way they've gone about it in particular. That's something that's really kind of got to me. But for me, if anyone had to come in, it would be Thomas Frank. I do think that he's done a good job at Brentford. I think, taking them from the Championship, they're now a stable Premier League club. They haven't spent a lot. They constantly cause surprises against big teams. So I think that he's done a great job, clearly shown tactical flexibility. But I get this uninspiring. You have a manager that wins the Europa League, and you have Thomas Frank who comes in, who's lost every single game against us since Ange Postecoglou took charge of the club. So I do get both sides of this one. Lewis, what do you make of Thomas Frank? I know if you could choose, you definitely have Ange Postecoglou, but putting that to a side, out of the managers that are potentially available, what do you reckon, Thomas Frank? Is that, I don't know, fill you with any hope?
To me, this is a Mauricio Pochettino in the making. I'm not in the making. It's similar, like Southampton, Brentford at the time. Like that sort of manager, low on budget, tactically looks pretty inept. He looks pretty good, and what he's able to change in game scenario. Like he puts his team out for the team he's playing. I mean, Ange doesn't really do that. I mean, I'll criticize him in one way. He plays the same way no matter who he's playing. Thomas Frank will change depending on who he's playing in the game, and not just do it my way, which can be a good thing. But I don't know. It's not. I mean, Thomas Frank's never managed in a Conference League or Europa League. He's got no European pedigree, so to speak. And to play, if he was to be our manager, to throw him straight into the Champions League, I don't know if that's a bit too quick for a Thomas Frank. But I mean, if it was to be anyone, I wouldn't be like, oh, Thomas Frank, why are you doing it? You got no interest being. I wouldn't be like that. I would get behind him, but I mean, I just think it's a bit like, are we really going after the Brentford manager sort of thing? At the end of the day, like Brentford, like, I mean, it's just Brentford, guys. I mean, we've got a massive stadium, we're a Big Six club, and we want the Brentford manager. Don't we want the manager who's just out of the Champions League, or like, I mean, it's just a bit like we're lowering our expectations.
That seems very on brand, though, for the whole way this has been handled. Let's expect less.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get Daniel Levy necessarily yet, but it's just the way he goes about it. It's the easy option, isn't it? For me, rather than looking at Ange and going, let's back him or someone else, it's okay, let's bring in someone. Let's tell everyone we're starting another project, and hopefully I'll be forgiven. But this ownership and this chairman have had a lot of managers that have been through and a lot of opportunities, so it'll be interesting to see if they're given another chance. by their fan base. But Kevin, talk to me about Thomas Frank. We'll get onto other managerial options later, but I really like him personally. Putting the whole Ange discussion to a side, how do you feel about him and the job that he's done at Brentford?
I mean, I've seen you flashed a few comments up from the chat of people saying, you know, how many games he's lost at Brentford. But I think people have to bear in mind like the levels of Brentford. Like up until Thomas Frank took over, they were in the Championship. He took them up. Okay, it was via the playoffs. I think it was 4 or 5 seasons ago, and then he's kept them in the Premier League. And I've just looked up the stats. Over those 5 years, he's had a net spend of minus 100 million or so.
There you go.
So he's actually made money.
That's why Levy's appointed him.
Obviously, yeah, the main reason for that is because he's had to sell his best players. You think of the players he sold. He sold David Raya to Arsenal. He sold Ivan Toney to Saudi Arabia. I think before he came up, he sold Ollie Watkins the year he came up to Villa.
Yeah.
He's had to sell his best players because Brentford are a selling club, yet he still kept them in the Premier League, which is their goal. So I don't think you can say, oh, he's lost all these games. He's expected to lose a lot of games because they've got their stadium is smaller than our South Stand. So what do you expect? Like, I think if you put Ange in charge of Brentford, they'd have gone down long ago. Right, put it that way. I'm not saying I think he's the answer, but I think we've tried Conte, who's like a win-now manager. We tried Mourinho, and I don't think those managers suit us because I think they want the ready-made players. And as we've already touched upon, I don't think our ownership are ever going to buy those type of players. Whereas I think like a Frank has taken players, he's taken a Tony, he's taken Damsgaard, he's taken Whistle and Bremo, who everyone raves about. And I think I'd love them two at Spurs. If you can bring them two with me, I'm all aboard. Out of nowhere, I don't think anyone had heard of them two. And now they're two of the best wingers in the Premier League. So I think he's got that ability to take a player, mould them and get the best out of them, which actually probably fits more what we want than some big name, flashy Italian or whatever, who's been there and done it, but he's not going to get the winners that, he requires. So I actually feel like it might work for us. I think, as Lewis said, it gives me kind of Poch vibes in a way that he's done well with a lower club. He's got Premier League experience. He's been there and done it. So I think if we're going to go for someone, I think it's probably a pretty good choice. I probably would prefer Areola from Bournemouth, but I think Frank's probably a close second.
That's interesting. Okay, thank you. I think whatever kind of happens, whoever's appointed, I think will, and I know that they will. In terms of the fan base, all get fully behind him. Whether you agree with the decision or not, whether you feel sad about it, angry about it, support it. I think that we have to come together. I'm not saying give for example, Levy, the board, whatever, another opportunity. I think we have to separate that and go, look, and the fan base are always good at this. Let's support the team. Let's try not to make it hostile. Let's try and, push on whatever we think of the decision. But that fan base is very good at that one. So other, manager options, some are out there, Glasner, Iriola, Silva, managers that I can't really see in, going anywhere. But, when you play Champions League football, you have a stadium like ours, there's always a possibility they could down tools and walk out. Thomas Frank with Brentford, love him there. It'll be a difficult situation to get him out, but it's possible because of the club we are ultimately, and that is what Kevin was kind of saying earlier. Okay, you haven't won trophies in recent years, but let's not mistake the size of the club. But Dave, I want to kick it off with you. Leaving Thomas Frank to a side, are there any other candidates maybe that you've heard us linked with that are your favourite? It might be Thomas Frank. What have you made of the candidates that link to the job?
Well, I think, too, we can never forget that if Thomas Frank has a significant release clause from Brentford, the idea that they're going to pry him loose is we'll move on to our second, third, or fourth option. I think we should really pay attention to that right away. I have a hard time getting excited about any of the options that are available to us right now. And it comes down to, I just don't trust the decision to be made in the right way. I want the attacking football. I don't know that Thomas Frank does that. Iriola maybe does it. But again, like his team had a lot of injuries and they were in one competition. I think that if you're going to make a change like this, you have to go for somebody big. Like you have to go for like somebody that's like, that's going to get people excited. And I just like they all leave me meh. Even like you see the name, you see Pochettino's name floated again, and I was just like, we've already been there, right? It's hard to right now. It's hard for me to get excited by anybody, but I'm sure I'll fall in line and like support the manager. But Thomas Frank's as good as any of a bad lot, right? I mean, and he's a great manager, but he's just like, is he Tadaris to do? No. Or any of them Tadaris to do? No. They're all just like, they're fine. Good enough is good enough is what they are.
Tell you what, though, what we will keep, though, we've appointed Thomas Frank, is the excitement that Ange Postecoglou's football brought. Because if anyone's watched Brentford to everybody this season, or just generally since Frank's come to the club, they leak a lot of goals, but they also score a lot of goals. They play the high line, very expansive, very creative. It's similar in a ways. It's maybe a little bit more flexible, I suppose, and adaptable. So that Brentford are always interesting team to watch, and they're full of surprises. So, as I keep saying, although I'm annoyed with the decision to sack Ange, I still would
maybe De Zerbi. Bring back De Zerbi. Bring him back to the Premier League. I remember how we were so excited about him coming. Bring him back.
De Zerbi would beat Levy up after about one day.
That's what I say. I want all the chaos I can have.
Yeah.
We've gone through enough this week. Ryan Mason
chaos.
Leaving, Donna Cullen leaving, new CEO, Ange's coming, going, now gone.
Just to quickly touch on the point about someone said that they don't think Thomas Frank is very attacking. I think this season, bearing in mind he's managing Brentford, very poor squad, probably in terms of Premier League. Only Newcastle, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool scored more goals than Brentford in the Premier League.
There you go.
So they even scored more goals than us, our so-called 10 out of 10 attacking manager.
I mean, you're the one that said he was 10 out of 10 attacking, though.
On the scale of how attacking you are. You said that he brought our football back. So, if Thomas Frank can score more goals than Ange with a worse squad, then what?
I mean, he is a worse squad, but I mean, they also played like probably about half the amount of games our squad played that season. Because they just didn't play, they didn't go Europa League football. I mean, Carabao Cup and FA Cup was short-lived for them.
Yeah, take your point.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between playing.
We played like we were like one of the top 5-6 teams in most games played this season.
But that's most seasons for Spurs. We've got a much deeper squad than most people.
Do we though? I mean, we were playing with like teenagers out of position for much. Archie Gray.
But that was Ange's choice. It was Ange's choice to play Archie Gray centre half and not play Dorrington, not recall Ashley Phillips. Or not give one of our players a go. He had Reguilon on the books, didn't even put him in the Europa League squad. He had Jed Spence, didn't even put him in the Europa League squad for the group stages, league stages, whatever you call it. So he had to play Archie Gray right and left back. He never rested Porro. He also against Chelsea in December, Van der Ven and Romero had been out for about a month, both of them, and he started both of them against Chelsea. They both went off injured and were injured for another 2 months. So whose fault was that?
Is that not the physio, though? Because if the physio told you they're 100% fit,
no, but apparently the physio told them they couldn't play, and that's why all the physios left after. The head of Tottenham's head medical officer, who'd been at the club for like 15 years or so, left shortly after that. Because I think...
I was told it was more of a thing that they told him it was fully fit. They were fully fit. They weren't fit.
There's no chance they were fully fit. I mean, anyone could see that they're never going to be fully fit, are they? And especially not with the way Ange plays football. If you look at, there's this really brilliant graph that someone's done with like 4 quadrants, which is like how many attacking intense runs you do and how many defensive intense runs you do. So it shows you how much you kind of run back and close down when you're defending and how much you run forward and close the other team down. And most teams are kind of grouped around the middle, depending on the style they play. Like some teams play, like Forest play very counter-attacking, so they attack fast and they sort of defend slow. And Tottenham are like on the top right of the scale.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
From everyone else. And then we've also had almost the most injuries. So those two things must be correlated, like the style of football and the injuries. So I want someone who thinks, right, I've got 60 games this season. I need to protect my players, maybe against a game where we're playing someone crap at home. let's dial down the intensity a little bit. Let's not play so high up the pitch, or, you know, tweak things so you can get through the season. Don't just go, you know, balls out every game and then wonder why everyone's injured.
Interesting. Got an Australian in the chat who says, as an Australian but neutral, this is a disgraceful decision.
But Dennis,
I agree. I mean, I have to agree.
That's an oxymoron, isn't it?
It is. Well, I've just done my English language exam today, so I should know that one. Yeah, let's go with that. Oxymoron, let's hope so. No, it's interesting. So, Kevin, you say Iriola for you is preferred.
Out of the candidates that are linked.
Out of the candidates. What makes you think that? And also, do you think that Iriola will leave Bournemouth?
100% he would. I think people have got to realise, like, there's a food chain in football. Like, in the same way that if Man City come calling for one of our players, they'll want to go, like Harry Kane wanted to a few seasons back. Or if we go calling for a player further down the Premier League, they'd want to come to us. It's just the way football works. You know, everyone's got to realise that the bigger clubs pay more money. And at the end of the day, money's what it's all about. And managers are ambitious in the same way players are. And they want to move up that food chain. Like, he's probably taken Bournemouth to their ceiling with what they can spend and what they can do. They're having to sell their best players. Like, we bought Dominic Solanke off them, their best striker. And, you know, he wanted to come to us because, you know, he didn't want to stay at Bournemouth. He wanted to come to Spurs because we pay him like triple his wages. So if we went to Bournemouth and said, Iriola, we want you, 100% he would come to Spurs. And that's the same with all the other candidates we're linked with. I think that's just the way football works. I think the reason that I kind of would slightly sway towards Iriola, I think he gives me slightly more Poch vibes. He's even had a spookily similar sort of history. Like, he came from Espanyol. He's done very similar things. I think he got a team in Spain promoted a few times as well. I think the way he plays football, I really like. I think I like the way he's developed Bournemouth's players. And he also had a period in the season where Bournemouth had loads of injuries, actually more injuries than we did to their first 11. And I think they had a record, my memory serves me rightly, in 14 games, I think they won 10 out of 14 in that period. So he found a way to still win matches with Bournemouth squad, bearing in mind they pretty much haven't got anyone other than their first 11. So I feel like a manager like that would suit us better when we're playing more games. He could kind of manage the squad, work out how to tweak things, change tactics to win those games and pick up points, maybe not playing your optimum 11 every week.
Okay.
I just think it's, to me, I just want to say it's ironic that we're now, because I mean, if you go back at this season when we were probably December, or let's say we were like, we finished 17th, if we didn't win the Europa League under Ange, your manager's going to go, why would they want to come to us? 17th, no European football. Now we've got managers who want to come to us because of Ange's achievements that have put us into the Champions League. I just think it's quite ironic because I mean, if we said to you, if we didn't win the Europa League, Iriola, why would you come to Tottenham? You finished 17th, you've got no funding, Levy.
Because our South Stand is bigger than their ground. And
is that the sole reason you're going to come to Tottenham because of our stadium?
I was going to go on. So last season, when our financial results came out for last season, bearing in mind that was the fewest games we ever played. I believe we played 41 matches. We played 2 FA Cup, 1 Carabao Cup, 38 Premier League games. Our fewest for like 16, 17 years. Our revenue was only 4% down on the year before, where we're in the Champions League under Conte and we got knocked out to AC Milan. So you think how much revenue we're driving because of all the non-football events. Now, the season we've just had, obviously revenue is going to be up even higher because we got to the Europa League final. We won the Europa League. Now we're going into Champions League. So for sure, there's money there. I know the stories out in the press, got to sell to buy and all of this nonsense. But for sure, we've got a budget 10 times the size of Bournemouth, even if we didn't win the Europa League, because of the stature of our club and how much money we can print from that stadium, all the non-footballing events. I think this season we're going to be doing 35 non-footballing events, I think it is, which is like a record number. It's more in 1 year than we've ever had in the history of the stadium or something like that. So like that stadium is just printing money, I think, is the bottom line.
But
so
I'm all here for that.
Iriola and said, you know, 17th is a blip. Like Chelsea can still chat players and managers. They had a season where they come 14th or 15th. Man United are still buying players. You know what I mean? It's not. It's about food's long-term food chain. If we came 17th every year for 6 or 7 years, we start to tar our reputation. But I think this is just a one-off.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's such to jump in, but
it's just if the money is going into the squad. Is the money really going to go into the squad? Because the amount of money we've earned from this stadium, I mean, has all of it really going into the squad? Because the numbers don't really see that.
I think the money does get spent. I think that's a misnomer. So you think before we're in White Hart Lane. So when we're in White Hart Lane, the last 5 years of White Hart Lane, our net spend was I think it was 40 million a year for those 5 seasons. Since we've been in the new stadium, our net spend's been 112 million. So the net spend's gone up by a factor of 10. Now, the players who spent that money on are a load of old rubbish. I completely agree.
And the wages. The
money's definitely been spent. But unfortunately, we bought Tanguy Ndombele, who was the biggest waste of money ever. Lo Celso. We've bought that guy that we... who is he? He's got Jack Clark for another 10 million. We bought Sergio, who barely played. Sessegnon, who was always injured. Even this season, you could argue that is Solanke worth 65 million, Richarlison 60 million. We bought Brennan Johnson 50 million. We bought Maddison 45 million, Romero 45 million, Van der Ven 45 million, Porro was 40 million, Vicario was 19 million, and we say Archie Gray was 40 million, the 4th most expensive teenager of all time. The only 3 teenagers that were more than him have all been signed by Real Madrid. So we've set the record for the most expensive teenager outside of Real Madrid in history. So we have spent money, but you just argue that it's on the wrong players.
Well, we don't spend the money when we need to in terms of the wages. We won't get that player over the line and be ambitious because of the wage. But you are right, we spent the money. But what I would say to Levy is, how can you expect to close the gap to the big clubs if you're not going to compete for them, right? And I know we've got a situation, obviously they've decided now with the manager, it was unknown, but Manchester United, right, and Spurs both had poor league seasons. We won the Europa League, so we had a much better season than them. Totally understand that. But the difference is already, right? They're in advanced talks to Simon Burmo, and they've triggered Matthias Cunha's Wolves release clause contracts. That's 2 top players that improve them and would drastically improve us and solve a lot of our problems. We're twiddling our thumbs about what's going to happen with our manager and trying to sort out the problems upstairs, who's coming and going and literally trying to field all the changes. United, very, very clear plan, and they've got the ambition because they know, as you said, you make a good point, Amred, if it doesn't go well for him, I think second half of next season he could be in a little bit of trouble. But they've signed top players that whoever manager comes in is going to want them, whereas we sign players that will not be wanted by that manager, club signings, and that's what's frustrating. And I think that leads me on to Daniel Levy. So let's kick it off. And Dave, I would like to start with you, if you don't mind. I want to ask you in particular about the statement, which I found interesting. It didn't have Daniel Levy's name on at all at the bottom, not the "Come on, you Spurs, Daniel," which we get in some announcements. But I just find it funny that he's dodging the criticism. I feel like this is a massive attention-seeking plot in the last few weeks. So what do you view? Obviously, we did touch on the statement earlier, but obviously his name not being on it. Do you read into that too much? I just feel, I don't know, it annoys me a little bit.
Yeah, I think my opinion on the statement is that it is it's out of touch, right? It felt dismissive, and I think though, in Daniel Levy's name not being on there, it just continues this trend of not taking responsibility and not expressing not wanting to put your name on things, not wanting to talk to the fans, not really being clear in your communications. That goes on over and over and over again. This whole thing it seems to just be driven by a lack of direction from the club. So I share your frustrations about like the name not being on there. I mean, it's his decision. Take responsibility, and that's just another signal of nothing has changed at the club.
No, you're right. I completely agree with you, Dave. But What just annoys me is, do you remember all this Daniel Levy arm stepping away from the football proceedings? I'm appointing Scott Mann,
Yes.
Johan Langer. I'm not involved in the football proceedings. Well, that was just a massive PR, wasn't it? Because, today...
Scott Munn's on the witness protection program.
Yeah.
Like, where has Scott
everything you
Munn been for
see
years?
Scott
this
Munn's
decision
been
was made
sacked
by
as
Daniel
well,
Levy.
hasn't
That's the rumor,
I
but who knows? Because we haven't seen any.
To be
We don't hear
fair,
anything.
I don't think we've ever seen him since he's been working at Spurs, have we?
I saw him once during the Europa League
We've
run. He
like
was
seen
sitting
him
on the
once.
sideline talking to Lang.
I think
So
the
that was
camera
once.
caught a glimpse of him once in like
Yeah.
2 years.
But even Johan Langer, right? He's at Aston Villa where the recruitment's not great, very wasteful. They've signed players at Barkley. It just hasn't worked out. And he goes and they have a couple of incredible transfer windows. Asensio, Rashford, where they've really improved and bolstered their ranks, I suppose. So I don't know. I just feel like that.
Yeah, it's
It's a bit
crazy.
frustrating.
There's no direction,
we
and
go.
that's like because now if Paratici comes back, then that's a whole different direction. That's entirely 180 degrees from what Lang does, right? Because Johan Lang's they sold us on it's data driven, it's thoughtful, it's dispassionate, right? We're taking the passion out and the emotions out of these decision making. Well, then Paratici, he's out there with his headphones plugged in, walking around making phone calls the whole time and like doing it all on vibes, right? So then there's, to me, it's always about the consistency and like what direction we're going in, and I just don't know what it is.
People
I
who
still
listen
would
to this
take
podcast,
Pratici's vibes though, because I think he signed some cracking players. He signed Vicario, he signed a Doggy, he signed Romero, he signed some. He signed some of the best players in our starting 11. I think
He also signed some bad players. I mean, that's just sort of the
everyone
nature of the
signs bad
beast.
players.
Yeah.
Everyone signs bad players. I think Lange signed Bergvall, which is probably one of the best recent buys. But I think Lange has wasted so much money.
Well, who have we signed? I mean, he did a really good job of clearing out all those players that were brought in that we couldn't, because one of the downfalls of the Paratici way of business is he doesn't sell anybody off, and you have this huge bloated squad. So Lang, he did a good job of getting rid of those guys, right? He was able to get rid of Ndombele. He was able to get rid of Højbjerg. He was able to move on to Lo Celso. He was able to find a place for Hill. That was part of the problem we've been dealing with, is we had all this huge bloated squad that we can't do anything.
I agree with you. I think the best thing he did was get 20 million for Skip. I don't know how he did that. He must have had some, but disagree.
He has information on somebody.
He didn't get though. We didn't get, just for the record, we didn't get rid of Ndombele. We paid him off, which is a bit different. We paid off his contract.
And what horrendous window that was.
But anyone could pay.
Look, at least as long as we got rid of him, that was, I think, it was in the end.
Shocking window that. But what we'll say is, anyone who listens to this podcast knows that I like to try and always remain a neutral stance. But I've got to a point now where I just feel like there's one, it's obviously a little bit more than that, but mainly one obstacle, one barrier to this club going anywhere. And I think ENIC as a whole is a massive problem. And I think you remove Daniel Levy from the problem and you do get somewhere, because, okay, ENIC's a massive problem. The recruitment, model's a problem. Even if Levy goes, different chairman comes in, we just aren't ambitious in transfer windows, and we're just never going to close the gap to that big teams, in my opinion. But what I will say is Levy's incompetence and, just inability to not get involved in, footballing matters. He just can't help himself. It's costing the team. And for me, I just feel like he's ruined this party. He's made it about him. And it's a time where the club's, won a European trophy, the first time in 41 years, and it has to be about him. And there's no accountability. There's no, okay, I'm going to sit down, do an interview, talk about how much of a difficult decision it was. So behind the screen, haven't got my name on it. I just feel it's very shady. And it seems like we're going to go through another project. And every time we go, he's not going to go through another manager. Surely we need to get him out. Well, I just think it's been far too long now. Business side, tick. Does a fantastic job. When it comes to the football
10 out of
side,
10 on the business side.
Not good. 10 out of 10
0
on
out
the
of
business
10
side.
on the football side.
I'm fully in
Talking
agreement
negative on
because
football side.
the amount of times on podcasts I've actually defended Levy, I actually defended him a lot, and I have.
We
Because
spent all season defending Levy, really.
Yeah, because
if you think about it.
the amount of podcasts I've been on when people have been like, "Oh, Levy, get out of my club," and I've actually sat there and defended them, Levy, because I generally think for that stadium, he has, like Kevin said, he's made a money machine that just prints money by the second, and that is And that stadium itself has put us alone, capable of fighting with the big six and capable of fighting with the Man Cities, the Liverpools. And that's him. But he's put us in that position to do that. But he's not going to take us from that position and actually go on from there is the problem I see now. So that's why I think this decision to me is kind of put me to Levy out.
Okay. I just see Levy as like this illness that is just, it's worse than, virus A, virus B that will eventually go away, but this just comes back and it comes back hard, it hits you and you just can't quite shift it. That's the way I view it at the moment. But Kevin, I'm very interested to get your thoughts on Levy and where you stand with him in terms of you want him in the club, out the club, Enoch as well. How do you feel? Is that, is it that much a big thing? Do you not matter either way? I'm interested to get your thoughts.
I feel like I'm a bit more in the same camp as Lewis. I think I'm a bit more balanced with Levy. I think it's easy I think it's easy to be emotional, and I think if you look back over 25 years, he's made loads of mistakes, and I agree completely that he doesn't go the extra mile. Like the biggest example was we were second in the league with Redknapp, and I think he wanted, who did he want? He wanted a couple of quality players, and he got like Ryan Nelson, and then we fell away. Like that's the best example where he doesn't grab the ball by the horns and go that extra mile, or he's got that 30 million or something to buy that one more player and he never does it, and that really pisses me off totally. But I still think if you look at what he's done, he took over a club, I think back in the 90s, back when I was at school, we were like a laughing stock. We came 14th, 15th, 10th, if we were lucky, every season. We were a nowhere club. White Hart Lane loved that stadium, but it wasn't really big enough, and we weren't competing. We were falling further and further behind, and he's responsible for the fact that all of us Spurs fans feel so entitled that we should be winning all these trophies because he's turned us into this massive club. As Lewis said, he's built that stadium. He had the foresight to make it multi-purpose, have events, have the skywalk, have all this stuff. Like you said, it's printing money 24/7. He's built us the best training facilities. And yes, he doesn't spend the money, doesn't plow it in, and that is so bloody frustrating. But I still think as a whole, he's done an all-round pretty good job. You could have had a different chairman, spend loads of money in the transfer window. We'd have won more in the years gone by, but then we wouldn't have moved stadiums, and maybe now we'd be in a really bad position. So I think it's really hard to be Levy out. And I also agree with Lewis that if we, in a perfect world, if we could just put Levy in some kind of box and say, look after the business, keep growing that, and then just get an amazing director of football and don't give Levy the phone numbers of anyone on the football side and keep him completely away from that. I think that would be the perfect recipe. But we all know
he
that.
said he will.
Lock him away with his spreadsheets, please.
Yeah, lock him away with the spreadsheet and the accountant.
Didn't he say all the money at the football club goes back into the team? Didn't he not say that?
No, he did say that, and he doesn't do that. I agree. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely.
My whole frustration with the thing is, because the business side you can't argue with at all, right? It's just that thing he's done has been amazing. They've done a tremendous job. I just want the same consistency and vision on the footballing side, and it never comes. And that's really shifted my opinion, right? Because I like I said at the start of this, I trusted that strategic review and that we're going to do things differently. Yet here we are having the same conversation that we had 2 years ago at the end of when Conte was gone. And how many times can you go through the same thing before you say like it's not going to change? And the history of the club under the Enoch's ownership and Levy's management shows that he's going to do it again. In 2 years' time, we will sit here, but probably won't have another trophy to show for it, and we'll still be somewhat rebuilding, somewhat doing something else. And, we'll still be going like, well, we got this beautiful stadium that makes a whole ton of money. And we got a nice young squad that's like underachieving, but we need a new manager because they're just not getting enough out of this. And it's over and over. It's repetitive. And at a certain point, you have to look at like, well, what's the common theme here? And I think we all know the answer to that, and I was like, until today, I was like, maybe this time's different. But now I know that like, you know, you can't. I can't allow myself to continue to be fooled.
No, I'd agree, but I also feel like sometimes people just think, oh, Levy's the problem. But if Levy went, we could get a worse owner. I feel like
there is that. Yes,
it's like blackjack. We've kind of got a 16. Do we twist or do we stick? Like that's the thing. So, like you've got some owners. Like look at Everton. They've won nothing. They would probably love to be in our position. You look at, I don't know, some other clubs who have, like Sunderland. Okay, they've just come back to Premier League. They've tumbled down the league. Blackburn, they got bought by the Venkies, almost went out of existence. There's so many examples of football clubs who've had terrible owners and have just tumbled them right down the league. So you kind of got to give Levy some credit that I don't think anyone's worried that we're ever going to come out of the Premier League.
And that's a great feeling.
Do you know what I mean?
You're financially
we're at a solid point, and it's frustrating.
You can go to bed at night and wake up and know that your club's safe. That is it's a great feeling, and I want Levy for that. And at the same time, it's also important to know that if Levy resigns, heaven forbid, hopefully, and someone else is appointed as chairman, then they're still working for ENIC. And ENIC, their model is all about profit. It's profit over glory. It's all about exploitation of fans, removing senior concessions. It's the team is second. It's business first. That's the way they operate. And as a chairman, you work on an
American model they wanted.
Very much the American but the only thing that is on Levy is the managerial decisions. That's on him. The sackings, the appointments that have been wrong time after time. That is on him for me. But anyone got any last minute comments before we wrap up for today?
I mean, I'll just say it's not Levy as a whole. I mean, I just think our board and the scouts. I think everyone in a hierarchical situation in Tottenham. That I mean, generally anyone who has a position of power in that club is just not exercising it the way they should. But I mean, I think it's just a trickling down from the owners to every single point of this club now because. Our signings have been pretty just uninspiring over the last 5 to 10 years. I don't think we've had we sold Gareth Bale ages ago, 100 million. What good signing came from that 100 million? I mean, and it's just been the case every season. Signings have just not been good enough, and that's up to scouts. That's up to people who spend the money. I mean, our scouting, Brighton have probably one of the best scouting systems that I've seen with their data-driven ways. Why don't we get on board with that? And that's like. A scout can do. I'd say our owners are just again don't plow enough money into this team. They refuse to do it. I'll say Levy, who's in a position of power, who's our chairman, has done some good. Has done some good with the stadium, but with the manager of the team, not good enough. And I mean, our medical staff has been. I don't really know what's been going on, but it's just not great. It seems. I mean, could be doing better. I think the squad could be themselves. I mean, obviously the squad don't really have. Power. I mean, they can join the club, but I mean, as a whole, it could be improved. I just think the whole club itself, in every single line, in every single way, can see an improvement.
Okay. No, it's interesting. I do think that wraps us up nicely. So thank you to everyone who's listened, who's tuned in. If you listen live on YouTube, who's got as well involved in the comments. Reminder, if you're listening on a podcast platform, please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Thank you very much. A lot of you listen to the end, so big up to all of you. Also on YouTube, huge figures again. Last week was our highest viewed podcast for an awfully long time. This has actually exceeded it, so thank you so much. And this is off the back of an incredible May, exactly. Get in an incredible May, which was literally record breaking for the channel, making us one of the fastest growing football fan channels in England right now, which is very special to say. So thank you very much for the continued support. It means a lot. So thank you. Already on track to have a very special June. So thank you to everyone. It means so much, especially as I'm sitting my exams as well. And thank you to all the co-hosts, the guests, and everyone who's stepped in my absence has just made that a lot easier to juggle. So thank you. Also a massive thanks to my panel tonight. It made it really enjoyable. Spurs, unpredictability of it. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy few weeks, to be honest with you, for the trophy parade to Bilbao itself, to comings and goings. But what is important here is that we all support Tottenham. We want what's best for our club. And let's go through the panel and see where you can find them. Firstly, Lewis, thank you. Good to be on with you again on the podcast. Where can people find you across social media? Are you more active now on your personal socials?
I have to be now. I mean, Levy's got some he's got some answering to do, hasn't he? But no, I mean, as the Romero 17 season there, I mean, whether or not he's staying, I might have to change that in a few months. We'll have to see, won't we? But yeah, I mean, you get one post out of me on Twitter there every few months, I guess. So I mean, go follow it if you wish. But I'll definitely be following Harry as always and Scarfey Spurs Talk, because I mean, a lot more posts come out on there than on my personal account. So.
That's right. Thank you very much. You're always welcome on. So thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you very much for coming on for your debut. Really, enjoyed in particular your interesting debates and discussions tonight with Lewis. It's good to get that different perspective. So appreciate it. TV1 against time. So you've done well. So thank you very much. As always, as well, you're also welcome back on. Where can people find you on social media?
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I've really enjoyed being on. I'm not really a bit like Lewis, actually. I'm not really a sort of heavy social media user. I am on X at Kev Holditch, if you want to follow me, but I don't sort of post very much. I more sort of use X to sort of keep up to news from more people like you, Harry. So, but thanks again for having me, and thanks for everyone for engaging in the comments. I think it's been a sort of good discussion tonight.
No, it's been really good. Thank you for being part of that. And Dave as well, it was your debut as well. Absolutely smashed it out of the park as well. So thank you very much. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Dave Wakeman. And you can also find me on the Twitter or the X, whatever you would like to call it. It's at Dave_Wakeman.
Lovely. Thank you very much. As always, you can find me at Harry Scarfe 22 across all socials, providing you the latest football and Spurs content. Make sure to check out all these guys across the socials. Like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, keep supporting Spurs. Let's get through this. Up the Spurs.